our secretariat, as well as all those that have joined us in the virtual meeting. We know there's a lot of people that have logged on, and we are hoping that others are also watching on our Facebook page. Before we take the opportunity for silent prayer meditation, I think it's fitting that we just recognize that we are in the Mandela Month, where we have, as a legislature, paid tribute to the legacy of Tata Madiba, but also recognizing that we had the unfortunate experience of also paying tribute to his daughter, Zinzi Mandela, the ambassador, that have lost her life to Denmark. We are also saddened with the passing of Tata Mlangeni, the last of the Rivonia trialists, that we are also marking this week, as well as this morning with the sad loss of Dr. Chabula Nqaweni, who also passed away this morning. And in this week, I know in Buffalo City Metropolitan Municipality, they are also mourning the loss of Utata Fanti, a long-serving and a veteran of the African National Congress and a community builder for many, many years. So all of these, and also our staff members that have had losses experienced since we met the last time, I think it is fitting that as we offer up our silent prayer and meditation, that we keep all of these souls and the families in our prayers. May we do so now. Thank you so much, honorable members. Before we commence with the business of the day, may I take this opportunity just to lay down once again some ground rules that will assist in facilitating our virtual sitting. Members, you are all once again reminded that this is a formal sitting of the legislature, and therefore all our standing rules of the legislature applies. The Rules Committee has ratified and adopted the rules for the virtual sittings and the committee meetings. I am aware that there are people who are connected to this virtual chamber who are not members of the legislature. Those people are entitled to observe the proceedings as they would have had in a physical sitting, but please, you may not participate. Members are requested to always keep the microphone and their videos on mute when not speaking, as this helps to prevent noise, echo, and disruptions from the background noise around you. Members must keep their cell phones and other devices on silent at all times. I'm also requesting the members that if they want to give me a message, to please indicate in the chat box or raise your hand when your device has got that option. As a word of advice, members are always requested to check the appropriateness of the background for the videos and also to dress decently in terms of our standing rules. The Microsoft Teams platform can only accommodate 250 people at this stage. And as I've said already, our proceedings are being streamed live on YouTube to accommodate those who cannot be accommodated in the Teams platform. I'm once again just pleading this time now with those guests that have all logged in, please keep your mics muted at all times. We've had lots of disruptions, and these are usually from members who you would hear eating or talking or making phone calls, and it's quite disruptive to the members. I welcome you all to this house sitting on the 23rd of July. Now we will proceed with the notices of motions. The first one I have is from the ANC. Honorable Chief Whip, you may proceed.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I move without notice in terms of Rule 128, subsection 1 and 129, that the House conveys heartfelt condolences to the Mlangeni family and South African populace at large on the loss of a true freedom fighter, Tatu Andrew Mlangeni, who passed away on the 21st of July 2020. That the House is reminded that his humble beginnings as a son of a farm laborer and subsequent material conditions which saw his mother being evicted from the said farm gave birth to his passion for justice a disdain for apartheid, and ultimately a revolutionary. The House acknowledges that his schooling years at St. Peter's School in Rosettenville ignited his revolutionary spark, wherein he positively associated with stalwarts such as Oliver Tambo, Tumanokwe, Joe Matthews, Zeph Motopeng, and many others. The House recalls that he soon took an active interest in popular struggles and was among the first to be trained as a guerrilla fighter in China in 1961, which led to his arrest at Lily's farm and the Rivonia treason trial, which earned him a 25-year stay at Robben Island before he was released in 1989, with Walter Sisulu, Govan Megi, among other Rivonia trialists. The House truly acknowledges him for his moral conviction, as it displayed sensibility in his utterances and exemplary conduct. As a senior statesman in every sense, he was a walking encyclopedia of the struggle to the younger generations and embodiment of the values of the struggle to those who were in opposition to the ANC. The House appreciates that he received numerous awards and honors, amongst them the Freedom of the City of London, an honorary doctorate in education from the Durban University of Technology, and an honorary doctorate in law in 2018. As a gentle revolutionary of the Rivonia Group, he was recognized around the world as someone who was dependable, trustworthy, disciplined, and defined by a moral persuasion that defined his life. The House remembers him as a moral compass, that his passing on represents more than just the end of an era and the passing of the last of a generation of freedom fighters who sacrificed so much for our freedom, but more importantly, freedom fighters who never expected or demanded any special recognition or personal benefit. That the House understands that his passing further represents the handing over of a baton to younger generations of patriots at a time when our country is in dire need of such individuals. The House realizes that as elected representatives of the sixth administration, we are to undergo the first real test. The image and reflection of our province by our detractors is of our own making. We cannot afford to fail the people of this province. Whatever differences we may have, now is the time to put them aside and close ranks in an attempt to save lives and livelihoods. How we deal and manage this fight against COVID-19 will surely have an in-depth in the heart and souls of people of this province on how they view and relate with the ANC. This is guided by the words of Franz Fanon as follows. I quote, each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it, close quote. The generations in whose path we walk have fulfilled their mission. In their honor, we dare not fail our mission. We are called upon by history to rise to the occasion. Honorable Speaker, the House will implore that it bids fond farewell to Tatu Mlangeni and gives him a standing ovation for his humanity and sacrifice towards fighting for the dignity of the disenfranchised majority of this country's citizens. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip. Members, I put the motion without notice to the House.
Agreed.
Thank you so much, members. Thank you so much. It's noted. The second motion that I have received is from the EFF. I hope that they will clearly indicate whether it is a motion without notice or a notice of motion. Over to you, EFF.
Thank you, Speaker. It is a motion in terms of Rule 131. So it is not a motion without notice. One, we want to acknowledge the leadership of the EFF, the Provincial Secretary, acknowledge the Premier, and all progressive forces that are in the meeting today. As the EFF, we also want to extend our condolences to the family of Isitalwande, Utatu Mlangeni, and also Comrade Utatu Mtsi, and many other progressive forces who parted during this period. I hereby speak, I give notice that I will move in terms of Rule 131 of the Standing Rules, that this House notes the following: that the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, will be celebrating its 7th year anniversary this coming weekend, the 26th of July 2020. That is, the EFF will locate our struggle for economic emancipation within the long resistance movement in South Africa against racist, colonial, and political, economic, and social domination. This glorious resistance started with the Khoi and the San people rising against colonial domination, marked by the arrival of the settlers in 1652 in the Cape. That this basically represents more than 350 years of African resistance against colonial and economic domination and exploitation. That the EFF draws inspiration from the gallant fights those who came before us have mounted generation after generation against the superior firepower of the colonialists. That those who fought the gallant wars of resistance did so to resist forced dispossession of land, wealth, livestock, and heritage, which they have cherished and inherited from their forebears. That the EFF notes the appreciation and appreciates the role played by the generations of political freedom fighters who sacrificed their lives, were imprisoned, exiled, banished, and separated from their families in pursuit of freedom. That it is against this background that we table this motion today, as we are in a quest of restoring the dignity of Africans. It cannot be that 26 years into democracy, the continued cultural domination of the people of South Africa through symbols of conquest are still prominent features of our towns and cities. We cannot locate our own identity as a people while symbols of our oppression still tower over our heads. We note the following: that the apartheid, colonial apartheid, was declared as a crime against humanity by the United Nations. The apartheid government erected statues to celebrate and immortalize the lives, ideas, and the actions of all people who were instrumental in furthering the racist oppressive system. The apartheid statues represent and celebrate the brutal triumph of the apartheid system against the progressive forces that were on the ground in this country. The statues stand in complete conflict with the aspirations of our democratic dispensation. Therefore, the House should resolve that all colonial apartheid symbols of cultural dominance, such as statues across the province, be removed with immediate effect. We call for this democratic government to honor our struggle heroes who fought against oppression, as they were representative of a common identity. I thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Tefana. It is noted, and the motion will be debated at a later stage in accordance with Rule 133.1. Can we now call on the third notice of motion from Honorable Stevenson, the DA? Over to you, Honorable Stevenson.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is a notice of motion. I hereby give notice that I will move in terms of Rule 131 of the Standing Rules, that this House, noting that the pandemic is ushering in the need for a new approach to the delivery of government services, noting too, a new model of more cost-effective service delivery needs to be developed for the benefit of all residents of the Eastern Cape. 3, the context of the high cost of the provincial wage bill, the lack of progress on the rationalization of public entities that could release funds for service delivery, the high unemployment rate in the Eastern Cape, and noting 6, the high cost of state-owned enterprises to the fiscus, which results in a declining equitable share for the Eastern Cape, the inability of state institutions to deliver efficient and effective services, such as the inability to keep the Livingstone Hospital clean and providing running water and proper toilet facilities to all schools in the Eastern Cape, which are all merely just the tip of the iceberg. The ability of the private sector to establish a field hospital in Nelson Mandela Bay within a matter of weeks, while no other field hospitals have been established in the Eastern Cape. And further noting that the present method of state-led development is not working. Noting further the partnership between rural communities and private security companies to improve rural safety and thus food security, the use of private ambulance services to supplement the failing EMS, that there is an urgent need for the government to develop a new vision of how services can be delivered, the need to bring down the ideological iron curtain that is curtailing the outsourcing of government services to the private sector, that the Eastern Cape is not only the epicenter of the virus, but is also the epicenter of corruption, and to counteract this, a fresh approach to governance is needed. The urgent need to free up funds to improve governance in the Eastern Cape so that the people can live a life of value. The House therefore resolves, 1, that the provincial government undertake a thorough investigation into the outsourcing of services to the private sector across the board in order to deliver efficient and effective and value for money services to the people of the Eastern Cape. Resolves 2, a report be tabled in the Portfolio Committee of the Office of the Premier within 6 months, and 3, the findings and recommendations thereof to be debated in the House. I so move, Honourable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Stevenson. The notice of motion is noted, and the motion will then be debated at a later stage in accordance with Rule 133(1). Honourable members, so that concludes the process of notice of motions. We now go over to member statements. We have received a notice from 2 political parties only, that is the DA as well as from the ANC. I am not quite sure who from the DA, but I will give over to the DA to make the member statement. Over to yourself.
Thank you,
Also
Honourable
the
Speaker.
EFF
It's Honourable Knudsen speaking. The province of the Eastern Cape has earned the title of not only the epicenter of the virus, but the epicenter of corruption. It is the people of the province that are the true victims of corruption, looting, theft, and maladministration of public funds meant for creating a life of value and prosperity. A zero-tolerance policy on corruption must be adopted. In an effort to clean up the Eastern Cape, we must ensure that the SIU investigations into the OR Tambo municipality for alleged fraudulent handwritten invoices to the value of 4.8 million and the investigation into grafting charges related to an amount of 168 million is expedited and finalized. We must refer the matter of the botched Lambe desalination plant tender related to substantial unlawful administrative actions to the SIU and suspend all officials involved until that investigation is complete. And we must carry out forensic audits related to all tenders for PPE in this province and refer any alleged corruption to the SIU, especially those that are already the subject of forensic investigations, such as in the Departments of Education and Transport, as well as in terms of the Nelson Mandela Bay municipality PPE tender. We are in desperate need of a new independent anti-corruption task team to tackle the increase of corruption. Public officials that are found guilty of corruption, theft, fraud, maladministration, must be blacklisted to prevent them from ever getting their hands on public money again. There must be a minimum prison sentence of at least 15 years for anyone found guilty of corruption. And we must encourage and protect whistleblowers to come forward. I appeal to the Honourable Premier to declare war on corruption by ensuring that the Provincial Anti-Corruption Unit deals with matters speedily and effectively, by looking into establishing a dedicated COVID-19 anti-corruption hotline for this province, and to reveal how many people have been arrested in the wake of Treasury and SIU allegations of corruption in this province, as corruption and maladministration are conspiring to shake the foundations of governance in this province. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Krutzer. Did not recognize you with the new hairstyle on there. I've just heard that the EFF also wants to make a member statement. EFF?
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Greetings to the chairperson of the EFF, commissars in Tetiana, members of the EFF that are in, the Premier of the province of the Eastern Cape. Greetings to all members and staff members present in the city. We are shocked by the toll of about 400 people that have passed on to over the 24 hours.
Honorable member,
and the infection that are increasing rapidly in the province. Speaker.
Yes, your sound is not audible. I'm not sure if there's somebody else that is also got their mic on, but you seem to be breaking up. Can you please do something about that? You may proceed. Thank you.
Do you hear me now, Speaker?
That sounds much better.
Thanks, Speaker. The shortage of staff is alarming in the Department of Health. The poor leadership and administration is paralyzing that particular department. As a result, as a nurse at Esgida Hospital wrote an open letter to the minister raising the concern and the frustration that they are facing as health workers in that particular hospital. This thing is giving a problem that the department administrators and the district people in the particular district did not attend to the problem that affects the health workers in the Department of Health. I want to check from the Premier, what is the strategy that is going to control the infection that are rising in the province? What is the strategy that will make sure that we don't see many people dying because of coronavirus in the province of the Eastern Cape? What is going to be done to those officials that negligently did not adhere or attend the problems that are being raised by staff members, doctors, nurses in those particular facilities of the Department of Health? Because to us, it means that the lives of doctors, nurses, and cleaners in that particular department are not being taken care of. We don't want to see our people that need to treat our people getting infected, and we left hospitals with no one to help our people, and our people will die without being helped. We note the good work that is done by public works at Mpilisweni Hospital, that in a space of 3 months, they have done a good job in a prescribed time. We want to check what is happening to other projects that were designed to address the problem that is facing, which means the COVID-19. How much work have done in those particular projects? What is done in Tsolo, that hospital called Sulenkamo? What he has done in that hospital, because we have seen on social media that hospital is collapsing. There is anything that is happening, and the department is addressing that particular addressing the issue in that particular hospital. we see that the Department of Social Development is collapsing, is not able to address the issue of a social relief of 350. Our people that are being referred to post office, and post office is not in a capacity to help our people. Every day we see long queues of our people waiting to receive their 350. What is the strategy that the province is going to address that particular issue? Because we see the infection that are raising, and our people are going to be exposed in this infection if the post office is not being attended, the issue of this social relief. We want the MEC in that particular department.
Honorable
Also
member, honorable member,
province.
honorable member, your
Thank you.
time is up for the statement. You have a specific time frame for the statement. Thank you so much. If there's anything else, you can put it on the wall. Perhaps the Premier can see it or write to the members when we have the opportunity also then for questions. Please, members, these are member statements and there's specific time frame for those. Can we now go over to the ANC? Not sure who the member is, to ask to make the member statement. Over to yourself.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Greeting to the House. Placing of the Eastern Cape Department of Health under Section 100. The African National Congress has noted the calls by some of the opposition parties for the Department of Health to be placed under administration. ANC calls once for the opposition political parties not to use COVID-19 for purposes of gaining cheap political points. It must be noted that COVID-19 pandemic affects everyone and all countries, and Eastern Cape government has laid bare all challenges confronting the province and on weekly basis updates range of stakeholders, including parties in this house. We find it unfortunate and opportunistic not to utilize the available platforms, but grandstand in wanting to regain what opposition parties could not win on the ground. It is known that government, which includes all the provinces, implemented a national approach to testing, which was based on an intensive community screening campaign. It was during this campaign that Eastern Cape tested more people, and so numbers of positive cases increased. In fact, it was at this point that the province picked up that most cases, which were imported cases, were coming from the Western Cape. It must be remembered that Eastern Cape was one of the provinces that had embarked on a testing campaign at its borders. As it relates to contact tracing, it must be noted that one of the provinces that had a significantly low number of contact tracers compared to the rest of the country was the Western Cape. While the National Department of Health has indicated that it is pleased that contact tracing team leaders in various districts in the Eastern Cape are already hitting the ground running, we must recognize the impressive initiatives by the province, such as the urgent renovations that have been done in some of the facilities that were dilapidated. An example of this is Cecilia Makwana Hospital, had an old section that was no longer in use. Provincial department has embarked on a project to refurbish this facility. As it stands, 3 solid wards with 68 beds are now functional and being used for COVID-19 patients. Another one is Frere Hospital, where a dilapidated ward into an ICU ward with 28 beds, it has been converted. We also launched the VW Field Hospital in Nelson Mandela. Yes, we're traversing an uncharted waters, and there are challenges as it is with the other provinces, and such does not warrant that National Department of Health should place all these provinces under Section 100. In our view, such would be a constitutional catastrophe that would disrupt our efforts to fight this invisible enemy. At this stage, Honorable Speaker, we must engage less in petty politics and expand our collective energies towards more content-based inputs. In this regard, the ANC wishes the Premier or the MEC for Health to outline if there are any basis which may warrant the department to be put under administration. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Chief Whip. I will now give over to the Premier or to the members of the Executive for any of the responses to the 3 member statements that have been made. Just reminding Premier and the members of the Executive that there is also a prescribed time frame for the responses, no more than 5 minutes per response, please.
Speaker.
Honourable MEC Gomba, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is a pity that the architects of the past provision of health services in this country would not today remember that the Cape Colony only prepared Cape Town as the center of health for the people of this area. And it is unfortunate that when the Eastern Cape is standing on its own, wanting to build its own health services, they would want to believe that it is not doing well. It is very unfortunate that we challenge, and I do challenge, Madam Speaker, the debaters of the issue, in particular the DA, to come up with facts and to open a debate on these issues. And we discuss them such that they understand fairly well that the Eastern Cape is not in green waters, but rather it is doing better than the Western Cape. And secondly, the fact that there is intervention and assistance by the National Minister does not necessarily single out the Eastern Cape. It is exactly what they did in the Western Cape. They are likely to have been given even more money than us, precisely of the predicament they were in, and we're doing the best that we can with the little that we have. I do want Speaker to stand here and say the Eastern Cape shall not be deterred to change the lives of our own people. For far too long, they have been happy to see the status of health in the Eastern Cape as to what it is for years, and they kept quiet. And now that things are changing, they're starting to wonder, what ace are they going to carry against the Eastern Cape? I want to say, Madam Speaker, let the DA and whoever else is talking give us a chance and see what is going to happen. Let COVID be not a competition kind of statement. This is not a race, but the lives of our people. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, MEC Gomba. Over to MEC Luciti.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Greetings to yourself, Premier, and members of the honourable members of the legislature. Honourable Speaker, if the measure of the success and failure of the Department of Social Development is on the payout or the provision of any social relief of distress to the most destitute in our families, then the millions that have been beneficiaries of the program by the department would strongly disagree with the member way before we even do that. The president and the department have gone a long way in terms of providing relief in the hard times that are confronting not only us as a country, but globally. And in that, the department have swiftly moved to create systems and paid out grants that have not been there, including the additional on the child support grant, including the additional on the old age and a disability grant. Now, even further, they went on to provide the COVID relief special grant. All of this is so that we limit the amount of distress and destitute amongst our communities. Now, the Eastern Cape will be a greater beneficiary of this, understanding the high employment that still confronts us as a province. Now, with the unintended consequence of this are the long lines and the long queues in the post office. Now, the post office, Honourable Speaker, for the benefit of the member, only those individuals that don't have bank accounts or unable to receive their payout through the e-wallet service receive their monies through the post office, because we know, as the president had pronounced, that everyone that is deserving of the 350 will receive. Now, USASA in the local offices will be working with the various local jobs to ensure that the same amount of collaboration that that went in for the improvement of the pay points and the grant payment days the same goes into when we are paying out the 350s, because abantu bakuthi bona kufuneka bezifumene imali zabo. USASA uzawusebenzisana kunye nomasipala kunye nejokes ukuze kwenze amagosa karhulumente ahambe oncedisa ukumaneja issue, ukujonga into yoba ngaba i-social distancing is maintained. Ndiyabulela, Sihlalo.
Thank you so much, Honorable MEC Lusiti. That brings to an end the responses from the members of the Executive Committee.
Honorable,
Oh, Premier. Oh, I did
yes.
not note your hand. Over to yourself, Premier.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Good afternoon to you and good afternoon to honorable members. Thanks once more for the opportunity. I just want to talk on the member statements that were talking about corruption. I think the posturing of DA must be actually dismissed with the contempt it deserves on this matter, and because we keep on wondering what barometer are they using to think that Eastern Cape is an epicenter of corruption. As that is not just something that they're saying in abstract, but also unscientific, and feeding into the narrative that certain forms or scales of corruption are acceptable while others are not. The ANC Eastern Cape government is committed to the total eradication of corruption in our society, including the task of ending systems that DA support, which is inherently corrupt and has failed to address the challenges faced by society. The DA should stop grandstanding and bring forward cases that they allege involve corruption. We must deal with real corruption. If you see corruption wherever it is, bring it forward. There is a hotline in the office of the Premier that attends to everything that comes across, including whistleblowing corruption. That's the reason why we are now dealing with issues of transport, setting up forensic processes, private and also done internally in Treasury, to ensure that we get to the bottom of the issues that have been alleged. Those issues were in social media, those issues were on papers. We are following them up because they were actually said in public. We have written to President on the issue of the SIU already. We don't need DA to tell us about that. We are committed in fighting corruption. We know when something that is actually reported and it's something that is unbecoming, we act on that, because we can't coexist with corruption, as corruption disrupts our program, undermines our vision of delivering the Eastern Cape we want. So the president has got that. We're expecting a proclamation on that to ensure that issues that are raised about OR Tambo projects, be it a door-to-door on COVID, or be it the projects that are alleged to have been paid and which are not on the ground, are all investigated. I've actually instructed DG already that the OTP must actually reorganize the anti-corruption unit. We need to strengthen it, to beef it up, so that we deal with corruption not only in the provincial administration, but also using our cooperative governments down to our local government on an ongoing basis, because we must actually uproot corruption in our system completely. The corruption has been actually systemic because it is always find its expression on a numerous way. But we're dealing with that, and we've been dealing with that, and the constitutional democracy provides such kind of capacity with our Schedule 9 institutions that deals with that. I'm happy that the Auditor General has indicated that they will be doing an ongoing auditing on transactions of COVID-19. And as the provincial government will be fully cooperating with that, we have told all mayors in our municipalities that they must cooperate every time Auditor General asks for a file. That file must be made available. As Auditor General has done already with the motorbikes file, that file has been handed over to Auditor General to look at it. So we are going to be doing that on an ongoing basis to ensure that finally we clean our administration. We must all commit and work together to eradicate corruption. We can't coexist with corruption in our system, not this time around. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Premier. That brings to an end the member statements. I will now ask the Secretary to read the first order of the day.
Introduction of the Special Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2020.
I will now call upon the MEC for Finance to introduce the Special Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2020, MEC Mvoko.
Thank you very much.
MEC, can you just hold on? MEC, sorry, can you just hold on? I see that you are going to make a presentation. I am just requesting our guests, because it happened the last time that they would want to all take control of the presentation. Please do not do so, because the MEC and the staff that will be controlling so that he can have the flow of the presentation. Please, to any other member also that would want to take control of the presentation, please don't do so. It is going to hamper the MEC from continuing with his speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Greetings to you, Honorable Premier, honorable members of the Eastern Cape Provincial Legislature, leaders of political parties, members of the Executive Council, Director General, HODs, and senior government officials, Secretariat, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, Molweni, Honorable Speaker, the entire human civilization has been turned upside down. We are in the eye of a storm. Throughout history, it seems as if the more civilized humans became, building cities and forging trade routes to connect with other countries, the more likely the pandemic storms would gather. These storms would ravage human populations and change the course of history. Honorable Speaker, the current COVID-19 plague has changed the course of our empire, flattening our plans to bring back human dignity and causing massive economic discord. This pandemic is also credited with creating an apocalyptic atmosphere among the people, spurring a rapid spread of a feeling as if the world is coming to an end. From Lomo, we have no choice but to ride the storm. So kufuneka sibe ngathi siyaqinisa ekwenzeni ngokongezelelekileyo ukuze sibe nokwazi ukubhebhetha isaqhwithi sokulahla ithemba esigqubayo phakathi koluntu lwethu. It has unraveled a fundamental paradigm shift in how we operate, and we think this will bring some relief in the difficult socio-economic times in the years ahead. The purpose of this special adjustment, Somlomo, on the 15th of March 2020, 10 days after we presented our provincial budget, the President declared a national state of disaster in South Africa in terms of the Disaster Management Act 2002, number 57 of 2002, following the declaration of global COVID-19 pandemic by the World Health Organization. On the 21st of April, the President further announced an unprecedented set of measures, which included 500 billion fiscal support package that encompasses spending towards COVID-19 priorities, which included an extraordinary health budget to respond to coronavirus, relief of hunger and social distress, support for companies and workers, and the phased reopening of the economy. The Minister of Finance on the 24th of June presented a special adjustment budget in which it highlighted the 20 billion reprioritization for provinces, with 15 billion rand for specific focus to health for COVID-19 intervention. It alluded on additional allocation of 11 billion rand and with further 9 billion rand being reprioritized for water and sanitation through conditional grants. Honorable members, therefore, the purpose of this special adjustment budget is to cater for reprioritization and the allocation of additional funds that will enable departments to spend on COVID-19 allocations. Furthermore, this special adjustment budget is in line with the circular issued by the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation that encourages departments to revise strategic plans and annual performance plans. This will ensure that these plans respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and continued service delivery imperatives in the 2020-2021 financial year. As the pandemic is surging, the Eastern Cape province has reviewed its approach in order to enhance the capacity and capability to mitigate the spread of coronavirus. This has led to the revision of the Eastern Cape COVID-19 strategy to focus on a ward-based rapid response approach in order to maximize the impact of the fight led by the Provincial Command Council against the coronavirus. I heard one honorable member asking the Premier what is the strategy of the Eastern Cape, and I thought it is proper that I venture into that, Honorable Premier. Maybe some honorable members do not join the briefing by the Premier in the extended Provincial Command Council. The appointment of the COVID-19 advisory panel, the establishing of the project management unit, and the deployment of experts from National Department of Health and other sectors further provide enhancements to the intervention of the support team of OTP in place. The revised strategy is underpinned by 4 pillars, namely containing the virus, protecting the vulnerable and poor, developing sustainable health solutions, and lastly, saving the provincial economy and securing the future. This strategy provides the implementation framework for, amongst others, public health awareness, screening and referrals for testing, contact tracing, quarantine and isolation, assessment for home-based care, hands-on support, monitoring and reporting, and others. During this challenging period, we've worked together with the private sector in ensuring that the Eastern Cape community is protected from the disastrous impact of COVID-19. We appreciate the willingness of all stakeholders in the Eastern Cape to continue contribute to the initiative aimed at intensifying the fight against this pandemic and thus protecting the citizens of our province. In this regard, I wish to mention just a few: the South African National Defence Force medical support teams, Cuba medical support teams, it's not me, Honorable Speaker.
Sorry, honorable members, please mute. Can the officials please intervene? My apologies, MEC Mvoko. This is totally unacceptable.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. As I was mentioning, Isuzu warehouse PPE and distribution to hospitals, Zhejiang Province, China, PPE, Rhodes University for the production of sanitizers, working in collaboration with the Donay Research Institute, Santam in partnership with traditional leaders for the water tanks, United States Embassy for ventilators, etc., etc. Economic outlooks. As the health and human toll grows due to COVID-19, the economic damage is already evident and represents the largest economic shock the world has experienced in decades. Global economic activity is projected to contract severely in 2020. The IMF projects a negative 4.9% global decline compared to World Bank's projection of a negative 5.2% global economic decline in 2020. National Treasury expects an overall negative 7.2% decline in economic activity in 2020 versus the IMF's projected minus 8% decline for the country. Current weak growth is a reflection of the pre-COVID-19 structural challenges that precipitated the initial technical recession, sovereign credit rating downgrades, and the anticipated global economic fallout from COVID-19 lockdowns. For growth to recover over the medium term, the implementation of government policy reform agenda needs to be intensified, focusing on improving productivity, lowering costs, and reducing demands of state-owned companies on the public purse. Honorable Speaker, the Eastern Cape economic growth is expected to decline by between -6 to -7% in 2020, with the following sectors expected to be severely affected: construction, commercial services, and those tradable goods sectors with strong links to global supply chains. That is auto and auto components manufacturing, and provincial agricultural commodities for export markets, for example, citrus wool and animal fiber. Honorable members, government remains committed to achieving fiscal sustainability, measured as stabilization of the debt to GDP ratio and to narrowing the budget deficit. This will require large spending reductions and moderate tax increases in the forthcoming medium-term expenditure framework. Over the next several months, government will prepare the fiscal consolidation proposals that will be published in the October 2020 medium-term budget policy statement. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, taking that there are unlimited needs, but with limited resources, 20 billion rand have been cut from the equitable share of provinces and reprioritized to mainly fund the health COVID-19 intervention. The province has been allocated 2.3 billion for reprioritization as the portion of the 20 billion rand with main focus to health COVID-19. Overall, the COVID-19 intervention amounts to 3.1 billion. That's the overall picture. Figure, with 2.5 billion mainly for health intervention and 662 million mainly for social relief and economic recovery. The above embraces the emergency funding through Section 25 of the PFMA, which I think I had reported earlier, provided to health through a reduction of the department budget by a 45% reduction on their equitable share, mainly on traveling and subsistence budget, which amounted to 264.8 million rand, and the total was 307.1 million, including the conditional grants. This is mainly due to lockdown levels and also the new way of operations, mainly through leveraging on information and communication technology platform, which enables easily connectivity for meetings. These funds were used to cover the appointment of enrollment nurses and nursing assistants, conduct laboratory tests, field hospitals, and for ventilators in the Department of Health. Health, Honorable Speaker, has been allocated 525.6 million additional funding to the following conditional grants. The 481 million has been added to the new COVID-19 component within the HIV, TB, malaria, and community outreach grant. This component complements spending for the purchase of personal protective equipment and ventilators. Furthermore, it is for the hiring of additional staff, including Cuban medical personnel, to assist in responding to the additional caseload resulting from the pandemic. A 44.5 million is allocated by National Treasury from the 1920 provincial disaster relief grants. These funds will be utilized to purchase personal protective equipment and is reallocated in the 2020-2021 financial year. To combat the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, provincial departments and public entities have procured personal protective equipment to the value of 911.8 million rand. Orders amounting to 661.02 million rands have been placed with Eastern Cape-based suppliers. It is incumbent upon accounting officers and accounting authorities to put in place measures to prevent abuse of procurement processes during the course of the pandemic. Furthermore, provincial government has embarked on a process of for repairs, renovations, and refurbishment of various health facilities across the province. And as at June 2020, the province has awarded 52 projects to the value of 283.7 million rand. A total of 47 contracts were awarded to Eastern Cape-based service providers to a total value of 234.6 million. COVID has also increased the need for the provincial government to support and promote local manufacturers and suppliers in line with the local economic development procurement framework. To this end, provincial treasury, in collaboration with other provincial departments and public entities, is in the process of arranging a transversal contract for PPE. I think I'd reported this. The evaluation of the bid process is in advanced stage. In fact, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Premier, this could have been completed by now, but unfortunately, all 4 members of the committee tested positive, and the process had to be stopped for a while. And I'm hoping, and I think they will be coming back by next week or in a few weeks, and the process would resume. The provincial treasury has been given a mandate by the Office of the Premier to investigate the procurement of COVID-19 PPE and services relating to the emergency actions required to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. These investigations are active and will be completed during the remainder of the financial year. We'll be making reports to the Premier periodically, quarterly, on these investigations. The investigations are in conjunction with internal audit units, with the Auditor General, as well as other law enforcement agencies, to avoid duplication of effort and matters falling between the cracks. We encourage the public to immediately get in touch with us as the provincial treasury to report any observed irregularities within the procurement activities or activities related to procurement. Honorable Premier, this special adjustment budget proposes a 2.3 billion as a provincial adjustment for COVID-19 response. The Department of Health has been allocated 1.681 billion to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic through 840 million for field hospitals, infrastructure, operating costs, and this included the maintenance of quarantine and isolation sites done by the Department of Public Works. 481 million for PPE and consumables. This should be enough to sustain the health officials for the duration of the COVID period. 175 million rand for 5,400 community health workers. 173 million rand for ventilators for 240 intensive care unit beds. 17 million rand for 171 enrolled nurses and nursing assistants for 12 months, in addition to the 822 in which was allocated in the emergency funding, and 12 million rand for Cuban Medical Brigade personnel. Education Department is allocated 341 million rand, of which 325 million rand is for the appointment of temporary teachers to replace the 2,278 comorbidity cases that can be affected by COVID-19. And 16 million rand is allocated for mobile connectivity for educators and learners, prioritizing grade 6 to 11 during the COVID-19 pandemic. To support vulnerable households An allocation of 103.6 million rand is made to the Social Development Department and is proposed, of which 78.5 million rand to complement the intervention undertaken by the National Department of Social Development and SASSA, where funds are for food provision to the 224,422 households as identified by the department. 18.5 million rand for the purchasing of PPE and sanitizers for employees, and 6.5 million rand for tools of trade, cell phone, airtime, data, printers, scanners, and vehicles for social workers to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Public Works Department is allocated 24 million rand, of which, in addition to the funding which is allocated with the Department of Health for maintenance of facilities, 21.8 million rand is for quarantine accommodation, including 3 meals per day and 150 private facilities for a period of 6 months, and 2 million rand for catering 3 meals per day at 74 state-owned facilities for quarantine people for a period of 6 months. Honorable Speaker, economic distress resulting in massive unemployment is still the single greatest challenge compounded by the current pandemic. Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism has recommended 114 million rand to be ring-fenced to unlock the potential investment and job opportunities in the two SEZ, Bucha and the East London IDZ. Secondly, SMEs and local industrialists to contribute to the economic recovery in the province post-COVID-19. An amount of 75 million rand is recommended to be reprioritized from the economic stimulus funding under Economic Development, Environmental Affairs and Tourism to be utilized for the Jobs Fund to support distressed companies as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is implemented by the Eastern Cape Development Corporation. We further reprioritized 5 million rand for Isikalo Fund for youth intervention. Honorable members, the constant need to ensure sufficient food supply during COVID-19 pandemic is critical. Rural development and agrarian reform is recommended for the following 30 million rand for increased crop productivity among smallholder farmers for 7,700 hectares to improve agriculture production for food security. 20 million rand to enhance food security to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic for the distribution of farming tax to 10,000 households. 3.9 million rand to support smallholder poultry producers with feed and medicine in order to produce 200,000 birds. In the midst of the planning for the 2020-2020 financial year, the province projected own revenue collection of 1.5 billion rand. The assumptions underpinning that projected revenue collection for 2021 at a national level changed, mainly due to the below investment grade outlook by rating agencies and the COVID-19 global health pandemic. This has resulted in various sectors of the economy not operating and not generating the projected revenue. Tax recipients from gambling taxes, liquor license fees, motor vehicle license fees, and revenue from hospitals are significantly affected, while other revenue sources have also been reduced. This has resulted in the original provincial revenue collection decreasing by 489.5 million rand, and the province has revised the 2021 province revenue to 1.06 billion rand. Honorable Speaker, our rebuild and recovery is about getting the Eastern Cape people back on their feet. This special adjustment budget is about strengthening our health services, protecting the most vulnerable people, and keeping people in their jobs wherever we can. We took careful steps in this budget acknowledging the toll this crisis has taken on our families and communities. We said at the outset of this administration that we would do everything in our power to build the Eastern Cape we want. Today, we go further and begin to chart a course towards hope beyond COVID-19. Finally, my unlimited gratitude goes to the head of the Provincial Treasury and all Treasury employees for their diligence and hard work during this difficult time period. Honorable Speaker, I hereby table the 2020-2021 Special Adjustment Estimates of Provincial Revenue and Expenditure, the 2020-2021 Special Adjustment Appropriation Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, MEC, for the presentation and the tabling. Honorable members, I can hear there are certain excited members out there, MEC Walker, today. I'm not quite sure why. Perhaps they have forgotten about the top slicing. But be that as it may, the bill then, honorable members, stands referred to the Portfolio Committee on Finance and Provincial Expenditure in terms of Rule 161. Honorable members, this then concludes the discussion on this matter and the business for the day. The House is adjourned. Thank you so much. Nkosi kakhulu.
Thank you, Honorable
Thank
Speaker.
you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Speaker.
Enkosi, Speaker. Thank you, Speaker. Enkosi kakhulu, Speaker.
Siyabona ngoku.
Asizi.
Bani, get on this more doing the colors and